Hi, good morning to everyone. I just want to give you my 5 minutes takeaway of what I've learned in about 35 bilaterals at this World Economic Forum in Davos. It's the 13th year that I've attended, and there are some 4 or 5 key messages as takeaway. So the first one is China is open for business again. They went through the biggest herd immunity exercise, where 90% of the population has de facto had COVID over the last 4 weeks. Shops are reopening fast, people are back in the office. And the message that Xi Jinping has sent is the 2022 results has been achieved. He basically has now leadership unchallenged till as long as he wants, basically till 2035 and 40. Secondly, has sent a message of we're back open with the meeting between Yellen and his counterpart, and by inviting Yellen in Beijing. Hence, we need to expect a quick flip-flop from being anti-West to be pro-West. Secondly, the largest delegation was India, which is quite interesting at the World Economic Forum. Basically, at the same time as India is becoming the most populous nations in the world, given to negative demographics of China for the One-China policy, India is trying to step in actually, as basically the #1 destination in which to invest. Modi has done many reforms, there are many challenges, but at least is trying in the effort, which so far China has clearly won. The third message is inflation has peaked, central banks remain on hawkish path, but in a way we've removed the worst case scenario, which we would have lost completely touch reality with inflation. And so the terminal rate of 5.25 in the US and 3.25 in Europe are about right. At the same time, I think in Europe, the hawks are now in control of the board. So I would say 4 out of 6 are hawks. So if I had to give a hunch, there's a probability that the ECB will make another mistake, as they did last time with the doves, by being basically too accommodating and too low for too long. This time, the hawks probably going to do the opposite. And so I think we can easily get to 350, 375. That will be a recession in Europe, but if you had to give me a probability, they'll probably make that mistake. One of the most important things I've learned is the Inflation Reduction Act in America, which is this $2 trillion investment over 10 years. It's attracting all European business in the States. We in Europe have the technology, we have the firm, we have the know-how, and every European firm is trying to opening a plant in America in order to participate in that subsidy and incentivization. That means the European have to follow suit, and I think this will further stimulate the European growth. So the necessity, or let's say markets pricing a certainty of a recession, I think markets and this is wrong. And if we were to have one, it might be soft. At the same time in history, when inflation got out of control, typically only a hard hiking of the central banks have brought, the inflation under control. This time, for various reasons, I think we can end up being a world which is 4-4-4, for unemployment in the US, for growth, and for interest rates. That's what one of the smartest CEO in America said, which I think could properly summarize the probability of a soft landing, at least in 2023. One of the interesting data points I got is Russia has used 85% of its long-range missile and has lost more than 60% of its modern tanks. That means they won't be able to keep the same intensity on the attack as they did in 2022, which is positive from a human perspective. And at the same time, remember the ratio 3-to-1 to attack and 7-to-1 in densely populated area clearly means when on a nation of 40 million as Ukraine, you're not going to win that with 500,000 military or even 1 million force. And hence, we could well end up having a status quo like it happened in North and South Korea, creating a border and a stalled situation. But I would expect eventually the situation to ease in 2023 and 24, simply because of the lack of Russian ammunition going forward, as long as the West keep on defending Ukraine. And that's positive because in a way is removing the worst case scenario out of this war. Global investors, particularly in Asia and in the US, completely sold off European assets indiscriminately in 2022 with the beginning of the war. and rapidly they're trying to mitigate that bet, catching up and deploying capital fast. Conclusion for us, we remain very positive on financials. Financial credit, 7 to 9% is a no-brainer, given the returns on equity and profits keep on rising. Financial equity in Europe, ultra attractive, even in the States, but in Europe even more so. Some companies are still on 4 or 5 times earnings, and earnings keep on rising. And last but not least, certain inflation has peaked, but rates are going to be higher and longer than market price. And that's our strongest bet. Future pricing a fast reduction, both in Europe and in the US, and I think they're wrong. Here, we're going to have higher rates for longer because some of the core driver of inflation, which is basically less labor force, higher energy prices, higher commodity prices, mainly led from green transition, are structural and are here to stay with us. And with this, I wish you a nice weekend. Bye.